If you are a Bitcoin investor, but the volatility has just been too much for you to stomach these few weeks, where do you go to hedge these days? Perhaps you don't trust the fiat system. And maybe you don't want to go back into gold, just like JP Morgan has been saying that they're seeing the narrative switch here and investors moving back into the yellow metal. So what is one to do? Should you hang tight or should you be looking for other places to hedge? Joining me today is Vince Lanci. He's the founder of Echo Bay Partners. He's also a frequent contributor to Zero Hedge. Vince, welcome back to StansberryInvestor.com. Good to see you.
Thanks, Danielle. Good to be seen, right? Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you can provide a lot of clarity for the crypto investor who's having a hard few weeks here and having a hard time managing the volatility. What is one to do here?
That's a timely conversation to have, especially with what happened last week with Elon Musk's comment and the Chinese news, whether it be new or rehashed. It's a matter of opinion. But I think the answer is, number one, you have to, and it's a platitude, but it's true. You have to remember why you bought it. And if you bought it because you're trying to make a quick buck, then you shouldn't be buying it. And you should be buying it for a longer term hedge against fiat. But the choices, the two immediate choices are what you alluded to, the banks now asserting their strength in influencing the market in a sense that they're going to be recommending some people go into gold out of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I think you need to be educated or try and educate yourself as best as we can as outsiders as to what's going on with all this news and Twitter stuff.
Well, there is a lot of news and there's a lot of, differing opinions. So I think, if someone in the crypto space is looking at this, it's really pretty difficult to decipher. So you mentioned the China news and, a lot of the Bitcoin enthusiasts will say this is FUD, that this has been news that's been out there since 2013. And every year we've seen this and it shouldn't really have an impact on the price. Do you think the China news will die down, Vince?
Oh, that's actually the last part of the question that I would answer, but I'll answer that first. I think the Chinese news and Chinese commentary and Chinese effect on Bitcoin is pronounced and will be decreasing geometrically over time. That's for sure. I think it's probably worth looking into what the Bitcoin people are saying when they say this is old news, because it is old news, but it's a little bit different this time.
Bobby Lee, who's the founder and CEO of crypto wallet Ballot, said in a consensus speech that it will actually be good for Bitcoin in the long run. Do you agree with that? That basically will provide lessons learned and it will only strengthen the crypto.
Yeah. Some people like to say things like that just because we're in it for the long run, but he's materially right. The China crackdown gets us out of a centralized government that controls its own Bitcoin mining or that can heavily influence it. It actually takes us out of the concentration of mining in one or two provinces in China. It is absolutely better for Bitcoin to not be so tied to China in any way, shape, or form. And he's right, absolutely. And it's very painful right now, as Max said to you before,
And just going back to the Elon point, Vince, we've seen what impact his tweets have had on the price of Bitcoin. Earlier this week, he tweeted that he was having active discussions regarding the sustainability of the digital coin. That gave a nice, a little bump to Bitcoin. But is he just toying with investors here? Should he just stop with his tweets?
I don't know what he should do, but I believe I know what his intent is, and his intent is to have fun. That's what he does, right? He doesn't really look. You have a guy who was wrist slapped for potentially manipulating the price of his own stock with the funding secured comment. So what's he do? He goes and talks about something that the SEC doesn't control. So he's doing what he does, and he's probably safer doing it in a market that's not regulated yet. But to answer your question straight up, last week, he made a comment. I mean, you have to link these things together in your head, but last week he made a comment. And that comment was, I'm not so psyched about Bitcoin, essentially, because its energy use is dirty, et cetera, which points a finger at China, and that just destroys crypto. The markets plummeted over the weekend, exacerbated by China making the announcement, we're going to crack down on it. And the crackdown, as you said before, they've been doing that since 2013. But this time it's different. And by that, I mean, it's different because they're actually going to do something, and they need to do something because they are trying to launch their own digital currency, and Bitcoin competes with that. So if we all
Right.
want crypto out of China,
Yeah.
this is what we want.
But Vince, all central banks now are looking, I'm not all, but I would say a good chunk, 40%, I think, of the 65 this year reported that they were, actively looking at some form of a digital currency. If this is the direction, if there's a race and a rush towards launching central bank digital currencies, won't this, how will this, what impact will this have for Bitcoin? If you're saying that China has to do something, why won't other central banks have to do something?
No, that's a really good point. I'm alluding to, and I try not to be too obtuse about this or obscure, but China is trying to land or launch their own digital currency. They want to basically ring fence their own tax base. And if people put their money in Bitcoin, then it competes with their own product. So China, I believe China's intention is to protect their own currency.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that China is cracking down on coal because that's what the world wants them to do. It's kind of like a woke capitalism thing, which is what Elon's point was. So if you take the crypto mining out of China and decentralize it, and by that I mean you're seeing something a lot bigger go on here, Daniela. You're going to see factions. Bitcoin is a tool, and nations need to control it or at least participate in it. And we are, I think, seeing the end of China, the beginning of the end of China as a dominant nation in this, and the ascent of the US in influencing this product's destiny.
Wait, repeat that sentence, Vince. You see, this is the beginning?
The beginning of the end of Chinese dominance in terms of miners and hash rates.
Interesting. And you think the US will step up here?
I think they are. Your point about
cleaner fashion?
Well, yeah, your point about, what happened last week? Last week, Musk says, Bitcoin's too dirty, right? China says we're cracking down. Bitcoin drops because of the hash rate dropping. And then, as you pointed out, what happened this week? Elon Musk the next day basically says, I'm talking to American miners. This is like, cartel's the wrong word to use, but this is like an OPEC situation. We're going to, the US and other countries are looking to dictate the parameters that people deal in Bitcoin on. So while China is selling it out, other countries are buying it. And we're going to have a more clean protocol promised on our end. You're going to see this do a lot of good things for Bitcoin.
Okay, so now that you've said that and we're armed with this information,
right.
Vince Lanci, as a Bitcoin investor,
right,
does that not change anything for you? Does that make you want to add more? Does that want to make you hedge more?
Yeah, it makes me want to do both, right? Okay, so on the adding more part, what I mean is if you are in this for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years, you are buying it when it gets cheaper, but you're not spending all of your money to put into it when it gets cheaper. Did I participate when it swooned on Sunday? Yes, I did. Was it big? No, it wasn't, because like you, like everyone, we have no idea how much lower it can go before that happens.
Are you just looking at Bitcoin, or did you look at other cryptos?
Ether as well. Those are the two that I understand the most for different reasons. But your comment about hedging, that's what JP Morgan basically just said. They basically said, put some money back in gold.
Okay, so on that point, so many mixed messages coming from the banks. Goldman Sachs saying, no, Bitcoin is definitely a new asset class. But, on the flip side, we have JP Morgan saying, oh, now maybe you should be hedging with gold. And the list goes on with these mixed messages coming from the big banks. So do we ignore that noise? What do you do?
Well, if you trade like I do, you can't ignore that noise. That noise is the information that tells you what they're trying to do. Here's what I mean. The big banks are now on the scene and are asserting themselves as a much bigger, more influential force in crypto. So the custodial businesses of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs bring in the whale customers. Why would the whale customers go to them? Because the bigger banks have a lot more one-stop shopping for them to do. if they want to do other things. And then JP Morgan or the banks, they have the clients in there and they do have good research. And they say, we think this, that, and the other thing. And they can now move the market with their opinions, which only increases their influence. So to answer your question, I think you're going to start seeing more conflicting news come out. And as an investor, just know that volatility is a tax on your patience. Just ignore the volatility if you're in it for the long run. And if you're in it for the short run, trade the volatility. That's what I would do.
Okay. Ignore the volatility if you're in it for the long run, which basically that's what Michael Saylor says, just zoom out, right? Anything that's appreciating 200% a year, this volatility is to be expected. But you're saying if someone is an investor in their, 70s, late 70s, take a different tactic.
Yeah. If you're 70 years old and you, let's say you have crypto exposure, let's say it's just Bitcoin, then you should just say, this is for the next generation, or this is for me to enjoy 5 years from now. It's not for you to look at every day. Looking at the price will drive you crazy. And volatility it's a tax on levered and uneducated people. And volatility is how they make you watch the tennis match. And then you participate and they take their fees.
And we see the influence that, the bank reports and statements have, and so gold rallying $40 off of that news from JP Morgan. That is an important point. On the 19th, JP Morgan said we are recommending clients put their money into some money into gold. And like you said, it rallied $40 off the lows. And that tells me, when's the last time a bank said buy gold during the day? I haven't seen it in 20 years. I don't remember. Right? I don't remember. And I've been doing this for 12 years.
That says to me, it's very dangerous to be short gold now.
Good thoughts, Vince Lanci. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
And thank you all for watching. And don't forget to sign up for my exclusive interview with Peter Tuchman. He is the most iconic trader from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. You can only watch it if you register at danielacambone.com. Don't miss it. It's a fantastic one, folks. That's it for me. I'm Daniela Cambone.